The resource I chose to review is called Blooket. I chose it because I found it super interesting when I was reading through the Padlet, and I thought it'd be something I'd like to try out in my class, especially since I'm always looking for something that's going to get my students engaged and wanting to participate in my lessons. And I actually do remember my students mentioning wanting to use this site, but I wasn't familiar with it. So when I got on here and started exploring, I realized that there were a lot of games that it reminded me kind of Quizlet, like people creating games and posting them publicly so that others can use them. Uh, so when I started going through here, I just started searching up uh, things that I'm teaching in class. For example, if I'm teaching a ratios unit, I can type in what I need and see if there's anything that's been created that I could use without having to generate myself. So I just started going through these. And for example, this one, if this seems to be coinciding with what I need, or if I'm about to have an assessment and this seems like a pretty good review for it, I could hold a live game in class. It'll generate a code for me to give to my students. I get to pick the game mode that I use, and then I can host that, and it will give me a code that my students will use to get in to the game. Reminded me of Kahoot. So as long as I find one that's already created that coincides with what I need, I can host the game. I can assign it so that they could play solo. I can assign it as homework. Um, and it gives them like a time limit to which they'll complete it. It gives them a goal so that they know what they need to complete in order to fulfill the requirements of the assignment. Um, Another really cool feature is the ability to create your own game. It's something that I didn't know until I actually started trying to create a game is that I can import questions from Quizlet. And Quizlet is a site that I'm a lot more familiar with from like, my undergrad days. So if I go to Quizlet, let's see if I'm doing. I like to label it with sixth grade because when I first started playing with it, it was giving me some eighth or ninth grade level questions, which wouldn't necessarily work um with my sixth graders. So I can go to Quizlet, hit create, search Quizlet, and then I will be able to actually search up what I need here as well. And then I can preview these. Let's see, that's grade 9. 1, 2, 6. I can preview these. If this includes, again, what I need it to, I could import it in and put it in my game. If I decide to create the questions or the definitions or the cards myself, I could manually in I can manually start them, and then it gives me multiple choice. If it's math, it has all of the different symbols I might need when creating a question. I can randomize it. I could set timers as they're going through because I could actually assign them individually or as homework as well, not just having that live game. Um, this reminded me a lot of Kahoot, but that customizable feature where I get to pick what type of like game it's gonna be on the student end, and the fact that I can let them do it on their own seems to really be something that's enjoyable to them. I tested this out the other day in my class, and they asked me, "Can we pick the game?" And they just started going in and playing educational games that weren't necessarily tied to the lesson I was teaching, but they had fun exploring it, and they were playing games that were like giving them knowledge. And yeah, it took 10, 15 minutes out of my end of the day like advisory period, and they had a lot of fun with it. So I do foresee using Blooket a lot more often in my class, especially during like my intervention time when I'm doing small group, um, possibly hosting a game with my small group, or and allowing the rest of my kids to be, individually playing it as well, using this as like a review tool before our assessments. Definitely recommend it, and I'm really excited to start incorporating it into my classroom.